Welcome on behalf of the members of the New Jersey Legislative Bloc Caucus from Trenton to you. Once again, I'm your host, New Jersey State Senator Ronald L. and Chairman of the New Jersey Legislative Bloc Caucus. As you know, small and women and minority businesses are very important to our community. So is role modeling. Today, our special guest, Mr. is William Michael Barbee, who is the CEO and President of Prestige Media Productions, is here with us. Mike is a young man who's going to tell us about his growing up in urban settings and the kinds of things he's doing. He actually owns 6 companies, something that many people don't pay attention to when it comes to young black males and female ownership of entities within our society, whether it's in New Jersey or whether it's throughout the country. We oftentimes talk about those role models we have that play football or baseball or basketball, you know, the Shaq O'Neals of the world, the Queen Latifahs and others. But there are people who walk through our communities every day that you see, you touch, talk to, and really never pay attention to what they're doing. And so today we're going to come to you with some news and some views and some opinions, and we're going to share this day with you and with William Michael Barbee, the CEO and President of Prestige Production. I just want to turn and say thank you very much. William, we're going to call you Michael, okay, for the program's sake.
Yes, sir.
And just, you know, so happy to have you with us because the Legislative Bloc Caucus members, we're constantly trying to go throughout the state and actually identify and meet people who are doing good things in life, who are real role models for our young people, but also improving the lives of others by employing people. You know, small businesses employ people. That's for our viewers' edification. And small businesses are also the backbone of this country.
Sure.
It's not that most people work in corporate America. That's just simply not true.
Right.
And there are various vocations, if you will, out there. But you're doing some very interesting things that we want to talk about today. Sure. But before we do that, as a small business owner, we'd like to ask you to just kind of give our viewers something of yourself. Who is William Michael Barbee? You know, where did you come from? You know, where have you been? You know?
I was born by the river.
Okay, well, let's talk about being born by the river, Mike. So it's on you.
Well, as you know, my name is William Michael Barbee, product of Newark, New Jersey, Newark Public School Systems, in which I was born and raised in the city of Newark at Beth Israel Hospital. Born in a family of 5, low-income neighborhood. Always had dreams, aspirations. I remember as a kid at the Chad School when it was on Clinton Avenue. Right. Back then it was cobblestone streets down in that area. Learning words from Brother East and Brother Moore. Words like education at the age of 3, determination, how to spell it. May not have known what it meant in totality, however. But being disciplined enough to hear and learn from others who were leaders for me, and that's where I really got my start with paying attention to what people had to say and learning patience and understanding and the value of school and education. So that was really how I got started, being a disciplinarian with school. Then from there went to public school, Burgoa Avenue School. At Burgoa in the South Ward of Newark. This was before the Highway 78 was put there, and people think when I tell people I was around before 78, they don't believe me. You know, I was one of those nappy-head kids setting little barn fires when the construction men were doing their job. But we lived on Hobson Street, went to Burgoa. I'm the youngest of 5 children. We were all born 1 year after the other. And after Burgoa Avenue School, went to Arts High School, City of Newark, the #1 performing arts school in the country. I went there, studied fine art. And while studying fine art, I went on to believe that I was this great artist, so I didn't feel I needed to pursue it into college. My other background is a family guy coming from a family of 5. My parents, Josephine Priscilla Williams Barbee, is the youngest of 10 brothers and sisters herself, born in Virginia, which I brought my Uncle Jimmy with me, retired director of Essex County Welfare. Brought him today. My father was a union worker. He worked started with Curtis Wright, Accurate Bushing Company, Westinghouse, and then it turned into Bendix, Honeywell, and he retired. Lost him around 7 years ago. But he was a UAW official, so with the two brains, my mom working with welfare with her brother Jimmy Williams and my dad Union, we had the best of both worlds. Though we were low income, we had a strong foundation. My father, as yourself, a former Marine, was a strict disciplinarian, Korean War vet. So, you know, his mindset with his children was a little different. You know, we have different categories for him. So my parents raised us with a lot of discipline, love for the Lord. Grew up in a church, family church, Zion Holy Church in the city of Newark. We believe that was the first church built from the ground up by African-American woman, who was my great aunt, Elder Minnie Eastith, 103 Camden Street, city of Newark. So I had a very, very strong foundation growing up in the city. And then as a kid, I met you. I remember we lived up on South 19th Street, and this is when you were just getting into politics. And my family relocated from the South Ward to the West Ward. And this was when South 18th Street was a two-way.
That's right.
And the number 6 bus rode across town, and you would be driving from the south side going to the west side to your district, and you would pick me up on the corner of Hawthorne Avenue and Fabian Place. And I was a little kid, and I was just so happy that this police officer with a gun, ankle holster, you know, I remember that as a kid, man. I thought he was, I remember we would see shows like Foxy Brown, Jim Kelly, Jim Brown, you know, you were that guy for us, man. You had an afro back then, you know, thick mustache. Who's the man? Ron Rice. So we always emulated you as well, my brother and I. So when we were on 19th Street, we walked down to 10th Street, South Orange Avenue, to your location. So I grew up with some strong people around me, so I always emulated.
It's good, you know, oftentimes as an elected official, and this reflect all of us, many of us who are elected officials, certainly reflect the Legislative Black Caucus members, because I traveled with them throughout the state off and on. But it's good when you look at young men like yourself and young women, and they are doing well in life, some doing better than others, some doing reasonably well, and they remind you, because you forget, you know, people grow up, they kind of change in terms of their structure, if you will, the face, you know,
Sure.
Some have hair, some lose hair, some wear glasses, some pick up weight, some lose weight, and they remind you of the little things. And that's why I always tell the people, our viewers in particularly, that little things in life that are positive mean so much to young people in growing up. They may not say much to you, but they do make observations, you know. I mean, just to hear, and I've heard it before, that here's a young man who's a businessman now, once again owns 6 companies, and we'll talk about the companies, paid attention, out of all the things he paid attention to, he paid attention to my ankles. And I just thought that was in my afro, you know, but it gave him inspiration, I would like to think, that maybe one day he could be a police officer doing something positive, or maybe one day he can share. Now, Mike, I know you went to college, and we're going to turn back to you. Tell us more about your college and your college experience.
Okay. I started off after graduating Arts High School. I went to Jersey City. I applied to different schools, got into Drew, got into different colleges, but I ended up at Jersey City State College, majoring in art. Once I got there, I realized art wasn't as challenging coming from Arts High School because of the level they prepare you for. By my second year, I started into biology, of which I was following my mentor, who is Dr. William Howard Griffith. He's another gentleman, a gentle giant who we don't often get the opportunity to speak about. He's done major business things, but I wanted to be a doctor by my second year of college, so I got on the path of doing biology and studying and doing intern stuff with him, and got into a program at the University of Medicine Dentistry. By my junior year, I was in a program there called Students for Medicine Dentistry, with various setbacks in the community and then personal and social. I went through a crisis in the midst of my college career, where I went through a major depression. I was carjacked, and then, well, back then they called it hijack. and so many other issues that started taking place. I had to take a break, and then I went back to college and went to Rutgers University, which I just wanted to change my whole look. No longer wanted to be the doctor, and I wanted to continue on my path of education and be that businessman that I was called to be, of which I majored in business management. Up there, I had another role model, somebody else who saw a young guy with potential, Joan Harris. She was an academic advisor. She's since passed. But she got in my corner and started really directing me in a good path of business. I'd already started a limousine service when I was in college, and that was to actually the crazy story after I got carjacked. I got carjacked from my Peugeot 505 STX. Never forget it, right there on Peshon and Custer, down the street from my home on Custer. And first car I bought, my father thought I was crazy. I bought a limo. I bought a 6-passenger limo from a company called Silver Ghost Limousines out of Chester, Pennsylvania. And with the limousine service that I bought, one of their cars first, then we bought others. And I remember I was taking different ones to the airport while in college, and I never charged anything, didn't understand charging. It was Dr. William Howard Griffith who said, "Man, why don't you charge me?" This was after I was taking them for 2 years. Right. Then my uncle Leonard, Bishop Leonard Williams, who also worked for welfare, he was head of the energy program, one of the architects of that for welfare. Bishop Williams, driving him all over the country to different conventions, and I started piecing together my time, money, and I need some resources, finances. So I started Barich and Associates Limousine Service, and that was the first business that I started after and while I was in college, all the way till the time I finished college, and continued it up until this day. What we've done thus far is changed the name of it to Prestige Tours, which consists of other assets and entities right. within that. Correct.
Well, just going back, you mentioned more than once on the program role models.
Yes.
How important is role modeling to our young people today? It was very important to you, and certainly back in the days you were talking about, although you're not a senior citizen yet, you can fit in between us and some of the other generations. Sure. But in all seriousness, back in the day, in the 70s, when I was a police officer and you and I was coming across each other in some capacity or another, we didn't have the kinds of gang violence we have today. We didn't have young people running around with automatic weapons, and the drugs was out there, but they weren't flowing the way it's flowing today with the purity and everything else. We didn't have young people going down the streets, gang banging and not caring whether or not a 6-month-old baby or an adult innocent or a bystander of just passing through is really injured or die in the process. And I don't think that they have remorse for that even when they pick it up and read in the paper. Right. I don't even think they have remorse when they go to all the RIPs, the rest in peace, candlelight burning and balloons. I don't believe they have any remorse when they go to the funeral homes to visit members of their gangs or people they know actually were harmed or died because of the violence. And I really believe a lot of that is because, we have police officers who are going to jail for corruption. We have politicians going to jail for corruption. We have clergy members going to jail for crazy stuff. We have business people going to jail. And it's hard to deal with the young people to say, well, look, here's your role model. So how important really is a role model? And this really question is really for our young people who are paying attention so they can seek out good role models. But it's also for adults who are watching this show so they can become good role models for our young people if we want them to succeed and get on the right path of success. So Michael, why don't you tell us something about the importance, or discuss with us the importance of role modeling? And are you doing any role modeling for anyone on your own volition?
Yes, my whole life is about, I have a quote that I've come up with, and I've lived and I die by it. It's called leave more than you take. Role models are the most important ingredient for the next generation, for our future, because we're all interconnected. For me, role models started in the house, and I always believe your parents are your first role models. I just cannot erase the responsibility that parents need to take in setting that first example, because whether a father or mother is absent from the immediate household of that child, they're still setting a precedence that whether it's good or bad, they need to take leadership and ownership of that child. So role models are very important. I had them, as I said, my mother and father were my first. My father was a Marine, very strict, very disciplined, didn't mind pulling a belt out. My mom was very gray, where there was a balance between the two. Both of them had different careers. My father was in Union. My father marched on Washington, to know he marched on Washington, to know as a kid he, at the age of 5, he introduced Mary McLeod Bethune down in Durham, North Carolina. To know his best friend growing up was Doug Wilder. So to hear history and to see it every day, to have a fond appreciation, showed me my role model to be my father. On the other side, my role model was my mother, because before there was God, as I always say, there was my mother. Right. It was in her shoulders that I cried, in her bosom that I was nurtured. So my role model started at home. I remember in college at Jersey City State, I got an A on the paper because I didn't say that my role model was an athlete, and there's nothing wrong with that, or an actor, someone that we see on television. But my mom has 10 brothers and sisters, and with each one of them, I created their positives and their negatives. Their negatives were the things that were examples for me to learn, to enhance, to make myself a better person. Their positive were those things that I ascended to being and wanting to be more of. And that's why even today with my aunts and uncles, I take them wherever, and my uncle today, retired deputy, as he's gotten welfare, he's with me today because at this stage, he's still my role model. I remember watching you. I cannot escape. And people, I remember as a kid, you want to be a fireman, you want to be a police officer. And in the city, it's not that we didn't want to be doctors or lawyers, but we saw leadership. As a kid at Burgoa Avenue School, we went to the firehouse on Clinton Place in West Runyon. There they taught us how to climb a rope and how to slide down a ladder. There they showed us about the makings and the mechanics of the fire. So we wanted to be those things. We emulated people like you, Herb Friday, another one of your colleagues, John Arnold Sr., Eagle Eye, Hawkeye, whatever they called them. So those were the guys that we emulated. And then when I saw you were the black shaft in Newark, I just that's my man right there. And 40 years later, we're sitting here in your chair. So role model is important.
It was very interesting because recently we had on the program the president of Local 108, Charlie Hall, who also grew up in Newark, by the way, and he too is a role model because we don't have a lot of black union leaders who are presidents of organized labor.
Sure.
And, two offhand, you can talk about Charlie Hall, 108. You can talk about Lionel Leach, 1039, the first black of that union. You can talk about people who've been president and move up through the rank in ILA, such as Jerry Owen, who happened to be Essex County field as well, and also a regional person. And we can talk about, people like Dudley in 1233. We don't have a lot of black role models, even in the labor movement, Carolyn Wade and her union with CWA. But in your situation, seeing role models and having them made a big difference. And then I guess the question is, as you indicate, in our community back in the day, and even today, it's not that people don't want to be doctors, lawyers, or scientists, or teachers, etc. It's kind of like they don't get a chance to touch or test some of those things. Right. What I hear you saying as a role model, even some of the things you may have wanted to do, because they always ask you in school, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everybody had this notion, I want to be a truck driver, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this and do that.
Indian
but
chief.
If it's not, it's not around you, okay? And so as a result of that, when you can have a hand-on experience and understand what it means to do those kinds of things, and then to find out also it's not that difficult. Reading the book may be difficult, but actually hands-on is really not. You get a better understanding. I think that's important. The history of Newark and history of Camden and the urban cities throughout America, at one time, even when I grew up in Newark, when you didn't have to go to the hospital You could walk around the corner, your neighbor was a doctor.
Yeah.
A black doctor.
Wow.
Your neighbor may have been a white doctor. Okay, your neighbor was an attorney. Your neighbor were all these kinds of things. The teacher that you had in school, in the classroom, or even after school in the playground, lived down the street.
As a community.
And so police officers lived in the city, firemen live in the city, and they're a majority I'm talking about. And so we don't see these things today. And then I think it's important that we in government try to find a way to encourage our professional service people and our small business people or business people in general to take up ownership of properties and locations here in Newark, but throughout the state, my members' districts and urban cities. Then I think you'll see that one element, if you will, coming from a criminal justice background, that one element start to kick in the reduction of crime, because people are going to see there is another direction,
right.
and there are enough of us succeeding in that direction that they can be something more than just on the street corners
sure.
or in gangs where most of them don't want to be in the first place. But let's talk about your businesses. You know, the business-minded person who was smart enough to know that you didn't want to walk and keep asking me for a ride from Hossam Street to the West Ward, so you went and bought your own limousine.
All right.
That's a very wonderful thing. But then you realize you have to put gas in it.
There you go.
And you got to maintain it.
Sure.
And then some kind of way you figure out between your role models and interacting with people that you need to make some money.
Sure.
And since you had this long car that they call a limousine, that you could make some money.
That I couldn't park on the street.
Yeah, that's right. So you had to get more money to garage
Sure.
it, right? But seriously, from that perspective, and from you getting involved from a business perspective with the transportation industry, if you will, how did you grow, and what are some of the things you're doing now? Tell our viewers about the 6 companies. Do they complement each other? You know, how do young people get involved with even one company? Okay. Tell them they need education too. But talk to us about that.
Well, one of the that I thought I should never misguide kids, say you don't get an education, because we all need an education. I know that my application, and I have to be very responsible in this response, didn't come from all the things I learned or the degrees I got in colleges or different things. I got discipline from college. Having a dream and going after my dream is really where I really base a lot. I remember being in arts high school, and I remember having a palette, and you have different colors of paint. And the way I've always interpreted my businesses and the success I've had, I take each color as a different business, and I paint it on a canvas called the world. And so my concept of business is a little different. I'm in transportation, started limousine service. From the limousine service, the same doctor who I was taking to the airport suggested that I start an ambulance service, because I was transporting his wife, security guards at East Orange General Hospital to and from the airports doing their weddings. And he said, "Mike, you're transporting us black back and forth. Why don't you transport the patients?" I said, "Transport the patients? What?" So then it was a matter of me doing the research with the State of New Jersey Department Office of Emergency Medical Services to start what I have now 16 years, United to Care Medical Transportation Service, of which we employ people of the community. So it may appear like so many businesses. I have 4 companies that are all separate that are covering transportation. So with the monies and that I've made with the ambulance and the limos, I started a school bus business. And that was through the help of now President, he's Congressman Donald Payne Jr., a good friend, introduced me to that whole area of transportation. And from there, we started charter buses. So we've been doing charter buses, school buses, ambulance, and limousines. So those are the 4 components. From there, I decided to invest my monies into real estate. So I felt good I remember one of the things that I did mention, when the reason why you had to transport me, not had to, the reason for your generosity during that time in the 70s was because we moved over to South 19th Street from the South Ward to the West Ward. Once I finished school, our house was set on fire on South 19th Street, of which 2 kids died in the fire. And we were displaced and we lost everything. We lived up on Evergreen Place in East Orange at a welfare hotel, the Lincoln Hotel. And we lived there for a couple of months, and then we were divided, and I went to live with uncles, brothers, sisters, went different places. But I bring this into the whole business story because the monies that I made with those 4 transportation companies, I ended up blessed with the opportunity to purchase the office building across the street from the hotel where I was homeless.
Okay.
So for 2 months living in a welfare hotel,
Right.
who would ever believe that I would own an office building in the city of East Orange, directly across from the place which I was displaced? So for me, I know, like now when speaking publicly to kids always and adults, I remind them where you are today may not be permanent.
That's right.
Because your tomorrows can be just that much different. And it may take tragedy to get you to prosperity. So, you know, for me, watching that dynamic. So being in the inner city, being in business and forms of transportation, I decided, well, now I've moved back into an area which I was displaced. I wanted to give back, so I started a substance abuse clinic, and I partnered with the gentleman, Richard Baraka, and we started Airmid Counseling Services, where we provide counseling service daily to clients with substance abuse issues. With that, we started a nonprofit with the help of our former business advisor, Evelyn Davis Grant, who is now deceased. She was one of the smartest people I've ever known. She used to be in charge of city welfare years ago. But she helped us with the foundation component. So in 4 months, we had a foundation structure. So we partnered those two, which we were funded in our first year with the Ryan White Extension Act. So we're providing services for people in the community who may be HIV infected and or are dependent on drug and or have mental illness. So
we're going to talk more about the mental illness piece too. You know, you said something that I think is important for our viewers. It's very important for the young people who are looking at this particular program. You indicated, number one, that you came from a family, it was a working family, struggling like most working families, raising 5 children, but you had good role modeling. You also indicated that, you know, you stayed the course and you went away to get a better education, a higher education, but you also had dreams.
Sure.
And the dreams you started to bring to fruition, not even knowing that it was going to turn out the way it is. But you also said that because you were able to bring your dreams to fruition and some of the things that you thought you could do, and I know it had to be hard work, and we can talk about the ups and downs of that and the rough times, you said you were able to make some money from the businesses.
Sure.
But you also said when you made money from the business, you invested some of the money in real estate. Now, it's not necessarily real estate I'm talking about, but you said something I think for the viewers that's very important. You said that when you make money, you need to invest your money. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yes.
And explain to the young people that may be watching and to the family members who may be trying to guide their youngsters why it's important to make money, but if you're going to make it, you know, invest it. You know, I don't think people understand, even the nonprofit you mentioned, nonprofits used to rent space. Nonprofit recognize now they need some income, they need revenues coming in. They need to own something. So why don't you talk a little bit more about that experience and why it's important to invest what you make?
Well, let me first do the disclaimer. By no means am I wealthy.
That's all right.
But what I can truly say about investing, I believe investing back into the community. You feel bad when you think you've arrived and you see your brother who you grew up with, who you played with, who's still struggling and just can't get it. Whether it's struggling based on economic, drug, substance, criminal history, whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, each of us are servants. We're only occupying space for a period of time.
That's right.
We're just passing through this thing called life, and life is more about, as my other mentor, because I have many, Ben Jones, who was a fine artist, retired after 40-some years at Jersey City State University as a professor. He always emphasized, he said, whatever you do, make sure you do it with a purpose. So investing is something I believe that we as people should do, particularly poor folk. When we grew up poor, we understand the inner city struggle. Investing in real estate is just an important thing. I have friends who invest in real estate for many years, but they do what they call flipping. I just think it's crazy to flip. Ownership, I go back to a history which we didn't own this parts up here. To me, I say own it, hold on to it.
That's right.
So investing back into your community as well as yourself, and I think the best thing is really into the community, because if you have the mindset to help somebody else far greater than helping just yourself, there's greater reward. It's important for me to walk in. I own an office building. Let's just put it out there. But I have tenants. But when I walk in the building to see my employees happy, to see them doing what they love to do, I have around 40-something employees. It makes me happy to see that. It makes me happy to see my tenants, to see the doctor who's my tenant. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mr. Barbee. Hey. Or see his employees like,
that's right.
So as a man of color, growing up in urban America, to still invest in urban America, I think is the best investment.
And it is a sense of pride, too. It's a sense of pride. It's a sense of worth and accomplishment. And then I think what I'm trying to say to the viewers, particularly family members who are guiding youngsters and youngsters who are young adults now, they're trying to figure out, I have a job, things are tough, that you don't have to buy real estate, but invest in something. Put some dollars in the bank. It may not seem to be a lot today when you put $5 in, you only have 10 in the bank now. But if you let it just go, then you're going to find that life is going to be a lot easier when you get to the ages where you're starting to retire or you just need to take a little vacation. Now, Mike, you talk also about the community, but you've been active in the community.
Yes.
Give us some of your activism, if you will, or your activities in the community, because once again, people viewing saying, I know that guy from someplace, but it may not be from the business side. Maybe, oh, that's the Michael that's over there. I knew that guy.
Right. Okay. Well, one of the things, being active in the community, and I go back to one of the businesses that I formed, which was the substance abuse. When you see your brother who's struggling and you understand his plight or her plight, you can't help but help them or feel some sense of compassion. And at times, for me, it was guilt because I used to wear my heart on my sleeve. Right. So with that, I took a position to create something that can help. Being active in the community is very important. I remember, as I said, working at East Orange General Hospital years ago. I would watch, as an employee working in a dialysis unit, I watched different board members when they had their board meetings. I was like, man, what are they doing back there? One day. And today I've been on the board there for around 13 years at the hospital that I once worked. So watching that and then being active in the community is very important, because what happens, we do community-based activities that help inner city, whether it's with your cholesterol, diabetes, educations with cardiac-related issues, other community things. I'm on the board at East Orange, at the Mental Health Association of Essex. Okay. And with that, we reach out into the community and provide services for people and families who are affected with mental illness. So being active in community means a lot to me. My church, the whole 9 yards.
It's interesting because, you talk about the experience you had in your residence, and therefore you wind up in a homeless shelter, now a hotel. Right. I remember Lincoln, and you look across the street and you see this building, not knowing that someday you're going to own the building. Sure. And then you looking around at East Orange General Hospital and say, look, all those guys go to, what are they doing? And then you wind up on the same board. Sure. And I think it's important that, as you said before, that people understand in general that you never know what God has, and destiny and disdain for you in
like
life. Every time you think you want to go someplace, well, look, if you don't have faith and believe, you're not going to get any place. Sure. That's for sure. But you have to believe in yourself too. Sure. and not rely on others.
Right.
And what I'm hearing you saying is that you had role models.
Sure.
But you also knew from a spiritual side and from a family responsibility side that you had to do something for Mike.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the ups and downs that you had to ride on this roller coaster, if you will, in terms of business, because we don't want people viewing this program to think that everything in life is a rose garden. And believe me, the Legislative Black Caucus members, we know that everything in life is not a rose garden. For us as legislators, for our families, for the people we represent, the small businesses and women and minorities, and particularly that are struggling, but they're surviving. And so sometimes we don't know when we are blessed.
Right.
We think we need a whole lot to be blessed,
Right.
but we're just blessed being alive. But there are going to be trials and tribulations, and certainly you've had some, and we're going to pray there's not a lot in the future, but I think that there will be. And so you need to also tell our folks not only about the trials and tribulation, but some of the kinds of things that they can do to prepare themselves for those unforeseeable, or at least the foreseeable ones that may come forward to make them stronger where they don't lose the faith.
Well, I know for myself, my trials, I remember after the fire, going to Arts High School, first day smelling like smoke. And I never forgot that stench of fire smoke. I remember buying clothes no longer from Sears when it was on Elizabeth Avenue, or buying at the stores on Springfield Avenue, our Easter clothes, and going to Bamberger's. We no longer did those things. We went to the Salvation Army, and we went to the other location on University Avenue, and that's where we bought furniture after the fire. I never forget those trials and tribulations, but also know that psychologically, me being an artist, being the sensitive spirit, I really couldn't adapt to a lot of the pressures, and I became suicidally depressed. And I remember going through counseling for 2 years with the late Shelley Niederback, Dr. Niederback, and I remember those trials and setbacks and what it took me to get to where I needed to be. I had to first start it. I always refer to a scripture in the Bible, and I'm sure the Quran and the Torah speaks the same. But it says, let a man examine himself. I remember Michael Jackson had a song, Looking at the Man in the Mirror.
Right.
It still goes back to being based on we need to examine ourselves in order to be better to others. And for me, my trials and tribulations, I had to first look at William Michael Barbee, and I think this will help the kids coming up. I no longer, I fought against procrastination because I think that was one of my friends at the time.
Okay.
And I had to get rid of my friend procrastination.
Right.
And I had to become accepting of who I was and whom I belonged. I no longer was just William Michael Barbee, the young little fast kid, smooth talker, go in your pocket, steal your candy, whatever.
Right.
I became a responsible person when I started. First, I had to go through something in order to come out as something. So my trials and tribulations started as early as that. So that same person who journeyed through those things carried them into business. Mm-hmm. So when I got into business, presently, I tell you, one of the major issues hitting inner city business, particularly those in the inner city, is insurance.
Okay.
Insurance is a major factor. Here it is, we employ all of these folks, but we're faced with crisis because we cannot afford the insurance to maintain our companies.
Right.
Therefore, we have to lay off, unfortunately, in those. So we have obstacles, but we still have to be persistent and work through those obstacles.
But the members of the Legislative Black Caucus, we know that insurance is a real major issue in New Jersey. Not just for small women and minority businesses, for pretty much all small businesses. We also know that the health care for employees, and that's why this debate on the Affordable Health Care Act is an important debate, particularly for working people and small businesses to some degree. We know nothing is perfect. We also know that as it relates to New Jersey, taxes are high. It's one of the most expensive states that we really have. I know as a small business person, you want to do the best you can for your workers, but I think you appreciate the fact that we're pushing a minimum wage. We're pushing the minimum wage, ballot question primarily because folk believe that people can sustain themselves at $7.25 an hour. That's just not a reality today.
Right.
Then the question becomes, we give them $1 more. It's still not. It helps motivate them more than help them.
Sure.
I think economically. But then we have to look at the impact on small businesses such as yours that's getting hit by the insurance piece. So young people and people who want to go into business, and those business people who think you're down and out, you're not. We do pay attention to these things as related to your needs, as related to the Black Caucus members, as communities, leaders, and even as human beings. But I think what Mike is saying to you, Mike Barbee is saying to you, the CEO and president of Prestige Media Production, is that you don't give up. Life's going to be a roller coaster. In some kind of way, it levels out, and then it just starts again.
Yeah.
That's just the way life is. It's not perfect. It's not a rose garden. Mike, let's talk a little bit more. We talk about transportation. Let's talk about media production. You know, first of all, explain to our viewers what is media production, because it's interesting. People say, I'm going to school for communications. And people say, oh, they're going to school to learn how to talk, okay? Or they're going to school to be a writer. And now this whole communication industry, if you will, have aspects of it. One really complements the other, and I don't think you can do without one component without the other. But let's talk about media production from Michael Barbee's perspective and that side of your business life.
Well, my company, Prestige Media Productions, I started 6 years ago with a partner who was successful in the music industry, Dwayne Spin Richardson, who was a very popular DJ at the time. We both went to Arts High School. Here you go, Arts High plug. And we started Prestige Media Productions because we felt the quality of production that was out there in our environment wasn't good. So we knew with our level of expertise in it, we can really start something great. Media productions in and of itself can be a variety of things. I mean, it's not just a camera. It is a vast amount of coverage, be it in communication. It depends on where you want to be, in front of the camera or behind the camera, and how you want to market that product once you do produce it, because then you have components of editing and directing. So there are vast components. We have Prestige Media Productions. We started 6 years ago. We produce everything from documentaries, produce shows. We produce a show presently in Atlanta. I'm executive producer of a show called We Are the Cab, which is a local cable station at Comcast down in DeKalb County. And with that, we try to promote positive image into the community down in that area. I chose Atlanta and that show to produce through Prestige Media Productions because one of the things I am is a writer. I have a few books, and one book is called Clip Wings They Do Fly, which we're making a movie. So with us making movies, I tried to find different markets, whether it's Nashville, Tennessee, through my friend Terrence Hurd out there and the people at the Tennessee Tribune, or down in Atlanta with We Are the Cab, we market our products. So we try to get a base in the urban market as well as in progressive African-American markets to produce Prestige Media Production. We do music video. We did Wincy Terry Bryant, Josh Milan, Vicky Martin, Cassie Ware. We produced those. Commercials you see on TV, we produce. We have actor Bill Cobbs, who was just recently in one of our commercials for the limousine service, Prestige Tours. He came on and lent his celebrity there. So often, because I'm around so many celebrities, I encourage them to do stuff for Prestige Media, since Prestige Tours is doing stuff for them.
And they're kind of like role models too, because
Sure
people, young people need to understand you rub elbows.
Yes.
It's not always about dollars and cents. It's about picking up additional experience and knowledge that can be beneficial to whatever it is you're pursuing. I know we're going to run out of time soon, so there's a couple of things I want you to articulate about, talk to the viewers about. Number one, you mentioned it, and that's the novel, Clip Wings. They do fly. And also that may have a direct relationship to what I was going to ask you about, the fact that I know you were chosen as the 2013 Ambassador of the Year for the state of New Jersey on mental health, because I know you're very much concerned about the state of mental health in New Jersey, et cetera. Why don't you talk about those two things, because I think they kind of possibly go hand in hand.
Yes.
From your perspective.
Yes. Okay. The book Clipped Wings, They Do Fly is semi-autobiographical. It's about a guy with multiple personality disorder, finds himself on trial for a crime he doesn't remember committing. That book is based on a lot of my emotional truths from my notes that I had when I had a psychotherapist many years ago, 25 years ago. Mental illness, I'm on the board at the Mental Health Association of Essex. We really push that mental illness is real and recovery is possible. So with that concept, we're able to merge treatment for people. I believe that mental illness is something that's been silent in our community for a long time. We don't speak about it, especially in the African American community. We don't talk about. We just say uncle is this way or auntie is that way. You remember how daddy used to be? Right. You know, there are really some psychological issues going on. Therefore, it's important that we recognize those things today in order to be more proactive in helping other people, because if we continue to hide behind or either bury issues that really are affecting us mentally. I know when you break your leg, you go to orthopedic.
Right.
You have chest pains, you go to cardiologist, pulmonary, lungs. But when your mind is messed up, you need to go to a psychiatrist, psychotherapist. So for me, I'm just big proponent in being open and honest with my struggles as a person, as a businessman, and trying to help somebody else.
Now, you mentioned Arts High, so I'm going to put a plug in for you,
Thank
okay?
You.
Arts High have a lot of greats come out there. Amir Barak, who's still here in the city of Newark, okay, one of the greatest poets and writers around, graduate of Howard University. You also, just a little bit before your time, okay, there was a young man from the city of Newark, lived in the South Ward, named Leroy Hudson.
Oh, wow.
Leroy Hudson was the person for the old-timers who replaced Curtis Mayfield with the Impressions. He went to Howard University also back in 1965, 66, someplace in that era. So Arts High, you know, has done a lot of great things, and they're still doing a lot of productive things. Mike, let me ask you a question. You know, what does the future hold for you? You know, you seem to be really active in business. You're seeing some downsides take place, but you can still kind of hang on because apparently you have good management skills and business skills, and I think that's important. Maybe you want to talk to the young people about that too. But what do you see the future holding for you?
Well, I think the future holds for me is become more proactive in a sense of trying to understand the problems that I'm facing as a businessman and really pushing that envelope to really look for a resolution and solution. What I find for William Michael Barbee is that I used to think my competition was the next ambulance company, limousine, media, so forth. But the competition really has to go beyond that. You know, in business, you go through cycles, ups and downs. But I believe that for me, it's time for me to get more involved in the political aspect of life because with that, I have a clear understanding of business. I understand the needs of the people. And I think I really need to start pushing towards solutions that can be made through some type of legislation that can help better regulate the market and make it a fair, even field for most people.
Well, given the kind of experience you have, mental health experience in businesses, the problems that people are facing today, you know, you were a burned out victim.
Sure.
You watch young people die because of fires. You know, you placed in a situation where it was temporary shelter. We used to call them the homeless motel and stuff like that, which was the Lincoln Motel, and things of that magnitude. So there's a lot of experience that can be brought, you know, to you know, politics or to the area where we make the in-house decisions.
Sure.
See, one thing about it I always tell the public is that we need good representation in government. I think we read today, not recently, not that long ago, about how social service money that should be going to people who were in situations like yours, maybe burned out, people who were supposed to be getting subsidies for housing. How in Essex County, it's alleged that the monies were not there to help some people because it was there, but it was going to political friends and friends of bosses. Okay, that need to be investigated. You understand that. you know, and so even your family background, teachers in the family, union labor leaders in the family, you grew up with that kind of a knowledge and could appreciate it. You know, people working in the welfare agencies. I know, like Jimmy, you know, we go way back there. Have you ever thought about running for political office?
Yes, I've, you know, for the longest I was behind the scenes supporting many of my friends who are elected officials and beyond. And I didn't desire it. I felt like the preacher who was called to answer a call. And really, because anyone who knows me knows that from as early as they can remember, I was always the shy one in the family, always behind the scenes. Even now, producing stuff, I'm behind the scenes. But now I'm being forced to the forefront because I need change to happen. Because if it's not my company, it's the next company. And when my company lay off, I'm laying off one person. If I lay off one person, it affects a household of 5 poor folks. And imagine that cycle within our community when small business is the backbone. So for me coming out now to say that I think I need to start switching hats now because I have to take a more proactive, because I can't keep fighting my brother over here.
Exactly.
I need to go to another level in what I'm doing.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when you talk about laying off someone, which is very painful to make those kinds of decisions, you have to terminate, not because it's a bad employee, it's because the economy is shifting or other things are happening, based on decisions that we'll make as elected officials. And then oftentimes you sit down, you watch the elected official, you listen to them and say, how did that person get here in the first place? They could care less about us. They have other personal agendas. And so that one family you impact on, technically, and in many cases, impact the whole community. But then when you look at the negative impact, it really winds up being more harmful or more substantial in the community that you came from, where you've seen all the problems, and that's our urban communities throughout the state of New Jersey, which is represented by most of us who are the Black and Latino elected officials and caucus at the state. Mike, I know we're going to wrap down in about 2 minutes or so. What I need you to do is tell me, you know, to our viewers, not me, but our viewers, tell us, give us a message. You know, what is your closing message? What would you like for our viewers to know, or something that they can hold on to that would sustain them and give them hope?
Well, today I think we talked about a lot, and particularly when we speak about role models, that's just so important. So I thank you today from being a childhood role model, Shaft, growing up in the city of Newark. But role models are very important, having them in the family, looking to those who are rearing you, holding them accountable and responsible. And we as a community need to come together. You need to know your next door neighbor. I just think it's absurd when people just don't know those things. Also, one of the quotes, as I mentioned earlier, is leave more than you take. I live and die by that. I believe that if you give, you will receive, and God will bless you 100-folds.
Well, that's scripture. The scripture tells you that if you give, you will receive. And we know enough about that life and about that scripture to know that it's real scripture. I want to thank the viewers as they come on. I also want to say back in those days when you were looking down here at my little piece, I had another one up here.
I know.
And I had one back here because I wanted to make sure that if I had to fire it, I didn't miss. Let me thank you for tuning in on the New Jersey Legislative Black Caucus from Trenton to You program once again. Tell your friends about us, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much, and thank our guest too, Michael.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. That was good.